The shots rang out around 10 a.m. Saturday. We had a camera crew in Squirrel Hill all day Saturday covering what the nation is calling the worst mass shooting against the Jewish community. Officials in Pittsburgh are still trying to piece together what happened.
Our producer Gage Golding was in Squirrel Hill all day with authorities and city leaders. He joins us now in the studio. Gage.
Thank you, Megan and Mike. 11 people were murdered and another 6 people were injured, including what we just learned today, 6 police officers when a single gunman entered that synagogue in Squirrel Hill, where he then opened fire. Megan and Mike, I can't even explain how somber the scene was in Squirrel Hill from outside of the synagogue to a vigil held Saturday night, where thousands of Pittsburghers from across the region gathered and mourned the loss of their neighbors. We'll have that whole story coming up in just a few minutes. Megan, Mike.
Thank you, Gage. Police say Bowers entered, shot, and killed 11 people inside the Tree of Life Synagogue on Shady and Wilkins Avenue in Squirrel Hill. Bowers injured another 6 people, including police officers, 3 who are still hospitalized. After being wounded, Bowers surrendered to SWAT officers and was taken into custody. Bowers is now facing 29 federal counts, including 11 counts of obstructing the exercise of religious beliefs, resulting in death. Pittsburgh Governor Tom Wolf called the attack at the Tree of Life Synagogue, quote, an absolute tragedy, end quote. He also stated, quote, these senseless acts of violence are not who we are as Americans. My thoughts right now are focused on the victims and their families and making sure law enforcement has every resource they need, end quote.
A total of 6 Pittsburgh police officers and SWAT team members were injured on Saturday. Joe Parison and Michael Smigda were released on Saturday, and Tyler Paschal was released yesterday. Officers Anthony Burke, Dan Mead, and Tim Matson are still in the hospital.
'75-year-old Joyce Feinberg of Oakland, 65-year-old Richard Gottfried of Ross Township, 97-year-old Rose Mallinger of Squirrel Hill, 66-year-old Jerry Rabinowitz of Edgewood, 59-year-old Cecil Rosenthal of Squirrel Hill, 54-year-old David Rosenthal. David and Cecil Rosenthal were brothers. 84-year-old Bernice Simon of Wilkinsburg. 86-year-old Sylvan Simon of Wilkinsburg. Bernice and Sylvan were husband and wife. 71-year-old Daniel Stein of Squirrel Hill. 88-year-old Melvin Wax of Squirrel Hill. And 69-year-old Irving Youngner of Mount Washington. The bodies are currently at the medical examiner's office. Autopsies have begun on those. We are doing everything in our power to complete the process in a way that honors both civil and religious law, and cause and manner will be released to the media as they're determined.
That was the chief medical examiner of Allegheny County reading the list of victims that were killed by Bowers. Bowers is expected to appear in federal court at some point today. We are slowly learning about the victims that were injured, and we'll bring those updates as soon as they are made available.
A full list of the victims is available online at rmucenturymedia.com. UPMC Presbyterian Hospital in Oakland took in most of the injured, including multiple police officers that were wounded.
The chief of medicine spoke with our CNN affiliate with an update on the patients. Here is Dr. Donald Yealy.
So the 2 most injured, one was an elderly gentleman who had gunshot wounds to his abdomen. He's had 2 major surgical procedures. That's actually part of the process, something we learned from the military, called a damage control operation initially to help settle the bleeding and stop the storm that happens after someone has a bad injury. So he's had 2 major operations. The other serious injured patient is a police officer, had all of his operations initially and is recovering now in the ICU.
And as we just mentioned, this is just released that 6 police officers were injured during the shooting on Saturday.
Gage Golding was with the scene in Squirrel Hill on Saturday, as we mentioned earlier. Now he is here in the studio with us. Gage, can you please paint a picture of what you saw on Saturday?
Thank you, Mike. That's right. We did arrive on the scene Saturday around 10:30 a.m. and the police presence was stronger than I've ever seen before. We're going to show you some of that video of the scene right now. Officials completely sealed off a 2-block radius around the synagogue, and we observed authorities from Pittsburgh Police, Pennsylvania State Police, SWAT teams, the Joint Terrorism Task Force, the Department of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, the FBI, and more. Some officers dressed in their own clothes from home, and some wearing full camo tactical gear donned with assault rifles. On every corner was more ambulances and police cars. We talked to multiple people at the scene, including Bishop David Zubik, who spoke with the media and consoled mourning community members. Here's what Zubik had to say.
As I said, I was celebrating Mass with about 1,000 of our women. Our communication director whispered in my ear and told me about the tragedy. So I shared it with the women that were there. We spent about 10 minutes in quiet prayer. As I said, it was silence, dead silence, and then some sobbing as well, too, as people began to drink in. And I think it's a matter for all of us to take a look and see, is there any prejudice in any one of our hearts? And we need to be able to root that out.
Community members gathering at the scene to lay flowers and, more importantly, comfort one another as they try to piece together what happened on Saturday. But to help with the mourning was seniors from the Taylor Alderdice High School in Pittsburgh. Cody Murphy and her friends came together and organized a vigil outside of the Sixth Presbyterian Church in Squirrel Hill. I traveled from the scene to the vigil to continue our nonstop coverage. Presbyterian Church in Squirrel Hill Saturday night in the pouring down rain, to remember the 11 people that were killed at the Tree of Life Synagogue earlier.
We love you too.
This is why people gathered at the corner of Murray and Forbes Avenue in Squirrel Hill to support one another as they mourn the loss of their neighbors. The vigil, organized by 3 seniors from Taylor Alderdice High School, featured candles, singing, and most importantly, comfort. Andy Harden lives across the street from the Tree of Life Synagogue where 46-year-old Robert Bowers opened fire.
And we heard gunshots. There was about 5 of them, and I see a woman, a police officer, clutching her gun. They say, "We need to use your home." My dad says, "Okay."
Harden says police use her second-floor bedroom as a sniping vantage point.
They have a good view of the 3rd floor of the synagogue, and that's where the shooter was barricaded. And so they go up, take the dressers out and move it in, open the window, and are waiting.
Thousands braved the freezing rain to show their true Pittsburgh colors. As you can see, the Pittsburgh community very affected by this tragedy. Members coming together, coming out in support to remember the 11 people that were killed. Reporting outside of the Sixth Presbyterian Church in Squirrel Hill, Gage Golding, RMU Century Media. And you guys can see just how serious community members were affected, and it was most definitely a somber scene inside the church and out on the street. Although the formal ceremony only lasted about an hour, thousands still packed the corner outside of the church for many hours, some even staying past 11 p.m. Megan and Mike, these vigils took place across the nation.
Gage, thank you for that coverage. And yes, visuals took place across the country as groups gathered and mourned the loss of the 11 slain parishioners. Hundreds gathered for a candlelit visual in D.C. on Saturday evening. With more on the story is RMU-Live's Nick Hederick.
Those who lost their lives in a shooting at a Pittsburgh synagogue. Many stood arm in arm, candles in hand. That promptly heightened security at other places of worship throughout the country, including the nation's capital. Hundreds gathered outside of the White House in Washington, D.C. to show their support for Pittsburgh. Senior Rabbi M. Bruce Lustig said this.
Acts like this are really acts against all houses of worship. The idea is to create fear.
For RMU Century Media, I'm Nick Hederick.
Thank you, Nick. New York City also hosted a gathering where the mayor and the Bishop of New York City, Timothy Dolan, both spoke to community members. Here's what was said in New York.
The city will never succumb to hate. We will never allow ourselves to be divided. We are one larger family. We are a place for everyone. And we've shown that year in and year out, and never more than the last few years as we've seen a growing harmony in this city.
And a violent attack upon a people, the Jewish people, who have suffered for centuries adds to the degradation and horror yesterday.
Among other things, the city of Pittsburgh is united by coming together to support their sports teams. The University of Pittsburgh did not use their victory lights Saturday night after their win. The football, hockey, and baseball teams and their players all reached out over social media to express their condolences to the victims' families. The Steelers, as well as the Penguins, had a moment of silence before their games. And the Penguins canceled their Halloween night to start a blood drive. Michael Shuley's in the Sports Center with more on the Steelers and Penguins. Mike?
Thank you, Megan. Although the Penguins were on the road in Vancouver on Saturday night, the Canucks and the Penguins still held a moment of silence for the victims of the Tree of Life synagogue shooting. The Pens would go on to win the game by a score of 5-0 on a day that head coach Mike Sullivan said, quote, "It was an emotional day for all of us. The Penguins," end quote. The Penguins will host a blood drive and collect donations. This will take place instead of the team's previously scheduled Halloween celebration. As for the University of Pittsburgh's football team, they also mourned Saturday as they came from behind to beat Duke Saturday night at Heinz Field. After the game, the team darkened their victory lights that light up the Cathedral of Learning. Pitt captain Dennis Briggs said about the game, quote, "There are things way bigger than the game we had," end quote. The Steelers also held a moment of silence before their contest against the Cleveland Browns yesterday at Heinz Field. The stadium went silent for 7 seconds to honor the victims of the Tree of Life shooting. The Steelers would then go on to beat the Cleveland Browns by a score of 33-18. And while the weather wasn't a factor for yesterday's Steelers game against the Browns, we did see earlier that it was a bit of a factor with some of the visuals. Chief weather forecaster Jordan Gaso is outside of our Moon Township studios right now. Jordan, what does it look like out there?
Thank you, Mike. And as we take a look at today's weather, we're looking at very gray skies, very cloudy, chance of rain throughout the day, but overall throughout tonight, we're looking at it clearing up and just cold weather throughout the entire day. Later on, we'll go back to my 5-day forecast, but for now, we'll send it back inside.
For all you need to know about news, sports, and arts and entertainment at RMU and around the Pittsburgh region, visit rmucentralmedia.com. When we come back from the break, we have the latest on an Indonesian plane that crashed into the sea and how Pittsburgh came together as a community to help donate blood for victims. We'll be right back.
They call me Maxie, but I prefer tripod. I was your above-average four-legged homie, and then wham, bam, minivan. Some people pity me. Now that's lame. I still run, fetch, and swim. And the ladies love me. I'm the ultimate wingman. Just don't ask me to high five.
Here at Robert Morris University, we pride ourselves at the experience that our students gain while they're actively learning in the classroom. Some even come back to share that knowledge with new students.
I never dreamed that I'd be back here. I'm having so much fun. I'm doing a lot of what I was trained to do and what I went to school for.
The Colonial Sports Network is a great opportunity for students to learn real job skills in sports programming.
To be able to see what the students want to make of it, because it can be anything that they want.
I love being here, seeing students, seeing myself in the students that work with me, and I'm really blessed to have so much talent to work with. It's really amazing.
To be able to see students become successful after Robert Morris is really cool.
Join the Colonial Sports Network team and expand your future today.
Hey, let's check out this park. Oh, wow, that's really cool.
To find a great local park or forest near you, go to discovertheforest.org.
Breaking news from North Carolina High School Monday morning. A student that was shot in school this morning has died, according to the police. The student was shot at Butler High School, and authorities say it stemmed from a fight between the victim and the suspect. The shooter is in custody. This story is developing and will be updated when information is available. We told you about a plane crash in the coast of Indonesia, and earlier we now have more information on that flight.
We are learning now that the Boeing plane experienced a technical malfunction the flight before this one, but Lion Air says the problem had been resolved. An Air Lion Flight 610 took off from an airport in the capital city of Jakarta and crashed into the Java Sea only 13 minutes later. The Boeing 737 MAX 8 was carrying 189 people, all who are presumed dead. The plane was brand new, being only delivered in August. The pilots had a combined over 9,000 hours of flight time. 6 bodies have been recovered so far. Officials are still working to find the black box of the plane that the flight recorder contains what led to the moment of the crash.
We will keep you updated with more information as it is made available.
Pittsburgh Mayor Bill Peduto has been the light at the end of the tunnel for many Pittsburgh residents that are searching for answers. Peduto spoke Saturday morning with our affiliates at CNN about the strength of the Steel City. Here is what Peduto had to say.
Affects one community, affects all of us, and right now I would say that there's a shock that is over this city. But you know, Pittsburgh is a strong city. We are a people that have a strong resilience, and we will get through this.
One thing that has helped some Pittsburghers cope with the shooting was a familiar logo with a special twist. Take a look at your screen now. This is the logo of the Pittsburgh Steelers, but instead of a yellow diamond, the Star of David is placed. The Pittsburgh Steelers logo saw a change in the response to the deadly shooting. Alongside the design, the logo is completed with the phrase "Stronger Than Hate," a tag that has taken social media by storm.
Also, be sure to tune into our other shows, RMU-Live Mondays at 1 p.m. and Fridays at noon, Sports Talk in the Berg and RMU Tonight Wednesdays at 5 p.m. and Colonial Sports Center Thursday nights at 9:30 p.m. right here on RMU-TV.
When we come back, Pope Francis spoke Sunday about the shooting in Pittsburgh.
And a GoFundMe for victims raises more than $200,000. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
They call me Maxie, but I prefer tripod. I was your above-average four-legged homie, and then wham, bam, minivan. Some people pity me. Now that's lame. I still run, fetch, and swim. And the ladies love me. I'm the ultimate wingman. Just don't ask me to high five.
Here at Robert Morris University, we pride ourselves at the experience that our students gain while they're actively learning in the classroom. Some even come back to share that knowledge with new students.
I never dreamed that I'd be back here. I'm having so much fun. I'm doing a lot of what I was trained to do and what I went to school for.
The Colonial Sports Network is a great opportunity for students to learn real job skills in sports programming.
To be able to see what the students want to make of it, because it can be anything that they want.
I love being here, seeing students, seeing myself in the students that work with me, and I'm really blessed to have so much talent to work with. It's really amazing.
To be able to see students become successful after Upper Moore is really cool.
Join the Colonial Sports Network team and expand your future today.
Hey, let's check out this park. Oh, wow, that's really cool.
To find a great local park or forest near you, go to discovertheforest.org.
This past weekend, Reuven Rivlin has been the president of the mostly Jewish community since 2014. Here is what he had to say.
The people of Israel and the entire Jewish people stands with you. In your time of pain, in your time of loss, we are with you. One people, one family, unbreakable, eternal. We must say loud and clear, this was an attack of anti-Semitism. Our brothers and sisters, friends and family were murdered because they were Jews. We cannot, we must not, and we will not ignore it or tolerate it.
Rivlin was not the only leader from across the sea to speak on the shooting in Pittsburgh and send condolences.
Engaged, even the Pope spoke about the shooting on Sunday during a mass.
Mike and Megan, you are both right. The Pope spoke about his disappointment with the acts that riddled the Squirrel Hill neighborhood and the entire city of Pittsburgh this past weekend. The Pope has condemned the deadly shooting rampage at the Tree of Life Synagogue. On Sunday, Pope Francis called the attack, quote, an inhumane act of violence. He also offered his condolences to the city of Pittsburgh's Jewish community during his weekly Angelus address at the Vatican. The pontiff prayed and for the end of an outbreak that has developed in societies. Authorities are poring over the social media presence of the gunman accused in the deadly attack at a Pittsburgh synagogue Saturday, including a post from just minutes before the shooting began. RMU-Live's Nick Hedrick has more on this story.
A federal law enforcement official says online postings targeting Jews are believed to have come from Bowers. One photo attributed to Bowers' Gab.com account shows a row of shooting targets. In another photo, Bowers displays a gun collection, which he called My Glock Family. Both photos were posted last month. During the shooting, Bowers reportedly made anti-Semitic comments. Investigators say those are similar to language he used in social media postings. Bowers' final post on his Gab social media profile came only 5 minutes before police were first called Saturday morning. The post complained about a Jewish aid organization for refugees and ended with the words, "I'm going in." For RMU Century Media, I'm Nick Hedrick.
Thank you, Nick. As we saw earlier, authorities were outside of his home where they searched his apartment and his car. The FBI in Pittsburgh have not yet released if they found anything inside of those two places. Megan and Mike.
Thanks, Gage. After hearing of the shooting, President Donald Trump called it a, quote, wicked act of mass murder, pure evil, and frankly unimaginable, end quote. Since then, President Trump said he will be making a stop in Pittsburgh, most likely to speak to the victims and families of those who were lost. President Donald Trump commented on the shooting during his campaign trip in Illinois. Trump stated that if the synagogue had had an armed guard, the incident could have been avoided. Here is the president in Illinois.
Through the centuries, the Jews have endured terrible persecution, and you know that. We've all read it, we've studied it. They've gone through a lot. And those seeking their destruction, we will seek their destruction. Now, when you have crimes like this, whether it's this one or another one on another group, we have to bring back the death penalty.
Blood donation centers in the Pittsburgh area have extended their hours in response to the synagogue shooting. Looking at your screen now to see how long the line was Saturday, blood was provided to UPMC hospitals from a center known as Valiant in anticipation of the increased need due to the shooting. Valiant received 200 additional blood components from its sister blood center to help continue to provide aid to victims. A man by the name of Shay Katari kicked off a GoFundMe in Washington, D.C. to help the victims' families and to repair physical damages done to the synagogue. The goal for the project is a total of $1 million. So far, over $500,000 have been raised. The synagogue receives the money directly as it is donated. If you want to donate, you can visit our website at rmucenturymedia.com and we will have the link.
Dr. Chris Howard spoke out on behalf of the Robert Morris University in regards to the tragedy. In his response, Howard encouraged students, faculty, and trustees to use the services of the RMU Counseling Center to cope with the event and also asked for people to consider donating blood. In the response, Howard said, quote, Pittsburgh is a strong community, and RMU will stand together to make sure this darkness does not overcome the light. Sports teams on the campus of Robert Morris University also mourn the loss of 11 worshipers in Squirrel Hill Saturday. The sports teams paid tribute in their own ways, from tweets to in-game ceremonies. Michael Shuley is in the Sports Center with more. Mike?
We'll be right over there with that when we get back from this quick commercial break, and we're going to stop off there.
It appears these hot ashes are about to be dumped, which could possibly start a wildfire. How will Smokey deal with such a hot situation? The garden hose defense. Next, a thorough stir. Then another spray. And finally, feeling if the ashes are cool.
Oh, yeah.
Ah, yes, the selfie. A ritual practiced so frequently with this tribe, but not so much by Smokey Bear.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
They call me Prince like I'm royalty or something. But the places I've lived ain't no palaces. So I don't need grilled salmon or a new scratching post. Just give me a cardboard box and a can of tuna and we're good. You can even change my name. I'm cool being the kitty formerly known as Prince.
They told me a bottle couldn't dream. That I would never become a superhero. But I learned how to fly. Just to come back in a new disguise. And be the hero that I've always wanted to be.
If you don't fix them, sparks from dragging tow chains could cause a wildfire, and that could be scary. Only you can prevent wildfires.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Shuley on Sports. I'm your host, Michael Shuley. As for RMU Sports, the women's soccer team season came to an end this past Saturday with a 2-1 victory against LIU Brooklyn. Jane Schleicher scored a brace that included an 85th minute game winner. The men's soccer team also played their final road game of the season on Friday, and they were able to pick up a 2-1 victory over Mount St. Mary's. The Colonials' goals were scored by Ricardo Rota and Christopher Corridon, and these goals were the first of their careers. And Rota's was extra clutch as it came in the 87th minute to seal the victory for the Colonials. The football team hosted the St. Francis Red Flash on Saturday, and unfortunately for the Colonials, they would not be able to pull off their second straight victory. The Colonials fell to the Red Flash by a score of 20-7. One bright spot in the afternoon was tight end Matthew Gonzalez, who caught the lone touchdown for RMU, and in the process broke the Colonials' single-season record for touchdown receptions with 11. The volleyball team split the two matches that they played in this weekend. The first match saw the Colonials fall in 5 sets to St. Francis Brooklyn. However, the Colonials would bounce back on Saturday and pull off a huge upset as they would defeat LIU Brooklyn, who entered the match undefeated in conference play. The Colonials broke their undefeated streak with a 3-1 victory. The men's hockey team split the series they played in this weekend against the RIT Tigers. The Colonials were able to grab a 3-0 victory on Friday night as Francis Marat made 25 saves in goal in order to seal the victory for RMU. But on Saturday night, it would be the Tigers who would get their revenge as the Tigers' Abbott Gerdekis scored the game-winning goal in overtime to clinch the 2-1 victory for RIT. The women's hockey team took on the Lindenwood Lions this weekend. On Friday night, the two teams tied at 2 goals apiece. The Colonials would bounce back on Saturday night, however, and go on to win with a score of 2-0. Now we are going to go over to our weather center with Jordan Gaso. Jordan, what do you have for us today?
Thanks, Mike. As we take a look at today's weather, once again, we're looking at very cloudy skies with a high of 47 and a low of 36. Only a 15% chance of precipitation for the day with 73% humidity. So a little bit of rain, but most likely not. As we dive into tomorrow's forecast, we're looking at a lot more sunnier weather with less rain, a little bit warmer as well with a high of 57 and a low of 48. Only a 10% chance of rain and humidity at 70%. Now, as we take a look at the 5-day forecast here, we're looking at rain for pretty much the rest throughout the midweek. Once we get later in the week to Thursday and Friday, we're looking at more partly sunny weather, getting a little bit warmer as we head into the weekend. That's it for my 5-day forecast. Now we're going to send it back to Mike and Megan back at the desk.
And that's all we have time for today for RMU Live. Thank you for joining us.
And we will see you guys next week. Take care.